Hey, it's Honest. This time, I'll be going back to the beginning and checking out Godzilla 2014. It's been a while since I've seen this movie in its entirety, so it'll be interesting to see it now, after having reviewed its sequel. Don't worry, this one won't be so long. That was a big complaint from the last one. It's longer than the movie! Shut up, stupid! Take your short attention span and hit the bricks. Not you guys, though. I was talking about some other audience. Alright, grab a drink, settle in, and listen to me babble a bit. Spoilers, obviously, but if you're here, you probably don't give a shit. Let's begin with the first act. The movie kicks off with a credit sequence done over archive footage from some nuclear tests in '54. However, it's revealed they weren't so much tests as they were attempts to kill Godzilla. Hey, look, Walter White. Get it? Because he's the one who knocks?
I am the one who knocks.
Yeah, I just covered that. Now, in regards to this nuclear test footage, I noticed a trend in this movie is basing its events off real-life incidents, like the tsunami and subsequent damage to the Fukushima reactor in Japan in 2011. I like that we're establishing a world we're familiar with, whilst changing it to accommodate monsters. That's what the other films have always done, and it's nice to be introduced to a familiar world, rather than navigate a world full of unfamiliar technologies and factions that feel both foreign and awkward.
The foreign kid just ate something off the floor.
Anyway, the bomb hits Godzilla, and I guess the military either thinks they got him, or gives up on trying to kill him. I would have liked to have known, as well as why they decided to kill him in the first place. We'll circle back to that later, because now we jump to 1999 in the Philippines, where Monarch is investigating a dig site. See, I like how Monarch seems like a small group of scientific observers in this film, rather than the major players running the show in King of the Monsters. It's quaint. I also like how they modeled Serizawa's attire after special effects director E.G. Tsuburaya. When he worked at Toho, Tsuburaya wore a hat, glasses, and suit jacket every day. He's the man who designed the original Godzilla, and is credited as one of the great visionary special effects masters of the 20th century. Also, Serizawa's first name is Ishiro, referencing Ishiro Honda, the director of the original Godzilla. I love the homage, and I love the look. I'm almost getting Sam Neill vibes off Serizawa here. You know, without the traumatizing kids or talking raptors.
Alan. Alan.
Alan. I mean, it's not an unwarranted comparison. They both go looking for dinosaur bones. But that's something that bugs me, though. Multiple Godzillas. You know, this series keeps making Titans out to be these gods of the Earth, but we're also shown there were plenty of the same species. Multiple Godzillas, multiple Kongs, multiple Mudos. I mean, it's also pretty convenient that these ancient species only have one or two descendants by the time the movie begins. I guess my real issue is the lack of a nuclear message in this film. I would have loved the old Godzilla's an ancient species mutated by nukes origin. I just don't understand why they decided to make him the last survivor of a race of atomic amphibians. It's an odd choice, and does a disservice to Godzilla's character to cut out his nuclear roots. Especially when you consider the movie begins with atomic testing and a reactor being attacked. Even the opening title is surrounded by nuclear ash. You'd think they'd be building up some message about being cautious about nuclear energy usage or something, but nope. However, I did read a quote from Gareth Edwards, the director, where he described Godzilla to be almost like the last samurai. He's the last of his kind, who is occasionally called back into action to fight the good fight. Now, the way he puts it does sound pretty cool. He wanted to make him an anti-hero, who keeps man and monster in line. I just wish he would let Godzilla check humanity a bit more often. Just one heat ray fired in anger at a tank and I'd be sold. Come on, Godzilla vs. Kong. Where was I? That's right, we gotta talk about our main characters. The Ford family. First things first, Bryan Cranston. Honestly, he may be the best part of this movie. He's the one whose acting stood out, and his underutilization in this film is criminal.
I'm so much better than any of you.
He seems like a good fit for the lead role until he suddenly isn't, and he's replaced by Ford Brody. 2 last names and no character. Ugh. All that marketing, Walter White versus Godzilla, and he's done in the first act. I don't like how these movies dangle actors from popular TV shows just to put asses in seats. So, it's Janjira in 1999, and Bryan Cranston's about to get the best birthday gift a married man could ask for. A dead wife. Oh, I'm just kidding. Please, please, bake my wife. Anyway, it's Bryan's birthday, but he's too distracted to enjoy it. You see, he's been monitoring strange seismic readings, and as the head of a nuclear facility, he can't stop thinking about it. He doesn't even realize it's his birthday and his son made a sign for him. Or does he? This dialogue confuses me. Check this out.
He made you a sign.
What?
Your birthday sign. He worked so hard.
God.
Happy birthday.
What? Is it?
Yes, it is.
Oh, I forgot all about it.
Alright, so he forgets, then he remembers, only to forget again and remember in the same conversation. Very strange. I guess he must just be too concerned with those strange readings. He's so concerned, in fact, he has his wife go into the reactor to check on it. I mean, his wife works there, obviously. It's not some weird bring your wife to the reactor day. Of course she works there. Look what the radiation's doing to her hair. Turns out that was a bad idea, because the facility is immediately attacked somehow. I was never really sure. And Bryan is forced to lock his wife in, sealing her fate. I gotta say, Bryan Cranston watching his wife die has to be the best performance I've seen in a Godzilla movie since X from Final Wars.
Gagan! Rise!
I mean, it was enough to make Tarantino cry. I'm dead serious. I guess I was more distracted by the whole visible radiation thing. Can you see radiation? I know you can't smell it.
Oh, hey, what are you doing? Dad?
It's clean.
So, with his wife gone and their home abandoned, over the next 15 years, Bryan Cranston starts developing an obsessive insanity about what happened that day. Meanwhile, his son learns to live with his trauma by falling in love with his sister. Alright, I'm kidding. But Aaron Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen played brother and sister in Age of Ultron, so now I just see them as siblings. You know what? I'm just gonna keep calling him brother and sister. It would at least make his character somewhat interesting. Without that, all we know about him is that he's a soldier who loves his family. Well, except his dad, who he's tired of putting up with after years of inane babbling. In fact, just before he can get some quality time with Sis, they get a call about his dad being locked up for trespassing in the Janjira quarantine area. Mr. White is a cockblock.
You can't keep getting away with it!
So now Ford has to truck his ass back to Janjira to bail his dad out. And because of this, Ford is... mad? Frustrated? Bored? Sad? I don't know. The dude's a tough read. You know, he just got back from a 14-month tour overseas, and now he has to go deal with his crazy dad's nonsense across the world. You'd think we'd see a little more anger or frustration out of him.
He always tries to drag me back, and I can't put our family through that.
I guess that's something. But get used to it. He's gonna be our constant throughout the film. Godzilla doesn't stand a chance against this level of screen presence.
Is my jaw supposed to drop?
Where's Bryan Cranston when you need him? Ah, there we go. I swear, take Bryan Cranston from any part of his criminally short appearance in this film, and he's absolutely crushing it.
My wife died here! And I have a right to know!
The film really takes on a whole new life whenever he's on screen. I wish I could say the same for Ford Brody. I got nothing against Aaron Taylor Johnson as an actor. I think they just didn't give him much to work with. I mean, he has his moments where his acting talent shines through, but there's so many other moments where I'm trying to guess what he's feeling. Honestly, he sometimes reminds me of that guy from acting class who didn't know what to do with his hands. You know Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Henry Cavill were considered for this role? I would have loved to have seen Superman take on Godzilla. But I guess we'll settle for Kick-Ass. Also, side note, Margot Robbie was considered for his sister wife. Think about that, gentlemen. Fuck Marvel. I want some DC. Alright, one last look, and I'm ready for more Godzilla.
Now fuck off.
So Bryan convinces his son to go back with him to the quarantine area. He wants to go back to his house to get the data he recorded that day of the incident. Here's something that makes me like this movie more than King of the Monsters. The set design. Wherever I go, I feel like I'm in a real space with plenty of room and depth. Something about the constant use of sound stages in King of the Monsters makes it feel claustrophobic. It's all control rooms and bunkers and tight spaces. It's nice to get outdoors every so often, especially when it looks this good. So upon arriving, Bryan realizes there's no radiation, so he takes his mask off and sniffs the air. Aren't you a science teacher? I'm sorry, a nuclear physicist? You don't smell radiation, bro. Also, he's got his mask on the outside of his hood. Bad seal, Bryan. I know, it's a small detail, but it's something I can't help but notice. I'm not trying to be a nitpicker here. By the way, in the opening scene, Ford has a series of toys on the floor. One of those is a Lego Star Wars Snowspeeder Model 4500-1. That particular version was not released until the year 2004. Everybody knows Model 7130 was the Lego Snowspeeder that was available in 1999. 1 out of 5 stars, terrible film, no immersion. Hashtag cancel Godzilla.
Easy, sailor, easy.
How about instead of some nitpicks, we get an Easter egg? Check out Ford's pet Mothra. Aha! It says Mothra because Mothra. See? Moths in the classroom, moths in the house, frame moths, hanging moths, moths everywhere. What is this, Buffalo Bill's house?
So powerful.
We also get a nice character moment here. Bryan finds the data he's been missing, but also finds a picture of his wife, whose face he hasn't seen in 15 years. In a little moment, Bryan Cranston shows us the pain of a man whose life was tragically derailed without any closure. With an expression, we see his regret at all the time lost and the father he never got to be. Meanwhile, Ford plays with dolls. To be fair, he does give the toy to the little boy later, so it does have a small payoff. However, a helicopter flies overhead. The two run outside to see it and... Wait, whoa, did you see that? Okay, let's check this out. Reflection of the helicopter... No reflection of them. Oh, that's weird. Uh-oh, cops are rolling up. Well, I guess they'll be escorting these guys out of the quarantine area and... Oh! Or I guess they'll bring them right into their secret operation instead. That's odd. Didn't Ford have to bail his dad out from regular prison when he trespassed earlier? I guess 2 strikes and Monarch disappears ya. Then again, Monarch is notoriously incompetent. Because apparently, even though they've quarantined the area to study this giant egg spore thing that is clearly fucking with their electrical equipment, they've still learned less in the past 15 years than one lone nut with an obsession. He's never even seen the thing before, and he has a greater understanding of it. That's tragic, man. But not as tragic as Bryan Cranston never getting an explanation on what the thing that killed his wife was, or even meeting the people who have those answers. He's literally a few feet away from the people who can tell him what he's been dying to know, but he never actually gets closure. However, I have to ask. So this is a nuclear facility, right? So why is there a supply closet with a one-way mirror? Anybody? I have to wonder how the set designer describes what that room is. It's very odd. Nonetheless, Bryan monologues all the information Serizawa needs to realize this thing is dangerous. I mean, you just watch the fucker give off an EMP pulse and he's acting like this is a shocking revelation he never considered in the past 15 years. I gotta say, I hate it in movies when a piece of very obvious information is only revealed at the exact moment it matters. It's been 15 years, and all the players and information are meeting and exchanging at the exact last moment before it pays off. Reeks of convenience. But here we are. The power shuts off and the egg begins to hatch. Or spore, or something. You know what? Let's talk a little bit about the Mudo. Now, Mudo is a monster that is unique, as it is the first original monster to be introduced by America, and is one of a select few over the whole series to be entirely original, after Titanosaurus, Biollante, Orga, and Megaguirus. Seeing a new monster enter the series was pretty cool, and it was nice having an air of mystery about it and its capabilities. But therein lies my issues. Its physiology. So in the beginning, we saw what was described as 2 spores in a Godzilla carcass. One hatched and left, leaving a huge wake of destruction to the ocean, and found its way to the Janjira reactor, where I guess it attacked and became another egg. Well, since the Mutos have a lot of bug-like characteristics, I guess we could say the spore in Godzilla was where the Muto larva hatched, and Janjira is where it began to cocoon. So if that's how the Muto metamorphoses, why are we shown later that the Mutos are already formed beings that hatch in clusters of dozens at a time? Doesn't really add up, does it? I mean, look, we're seeing a bunch of tinier versions of the adult Muto, yet we have a giant spore and egg for the first 2. That's confusing. Not just that, but I'm also confused by the Muto's EMP power. So, in this film, Godzilla is described as the Muto's predator, even though he doesn't hunt them for food and acts like it's a rival predator whenever it's around. So, what is the relationship between prey and predator? Well, usually, prey will evolve to combat predators, like crabs using a shell to defend against fish, or a porcupine using its needles to ward off a wolf. So the Muto's defense against Godzilla is EMPs? Why would an ancient species have use for a power like this? I mean, it's narratively relevant in this movie because of the times we live in, but from a natural perspective, it makes no sense. What's more, the rules for its EMP power are often broken. Like when we're shown that it can down planes and stop satellites from working, however they're able to fly another plane over it later with no issue. Also, EMPs fry electrical equipment. From my limited movie knowledge of EMPs, you usually have to change out the parts to get an EMP device working again. So it's odd to me that electrical appliances and lights can turn back on in this film even after being EMP'd. So, don't get me wrong, I'm all for new monsters and new ideas. I just also value logic and consistency. And here, we have a monster whose reproductive and combative abilities don't add up. They just seem to work however the scene currently needs them to. That is the kind of narrative laziness I can't abide. In terms of monster design, I don't hate it. It may look a little too much like the Cloverfield monster to some, but hey, I wanted more monster action from that movie anyway, so I'm fine with that. I will give props to the alien aesthetic they gave it. The reminiscent design of the egg and what it looks like when it first hatches, almost like a facehugger. Hell, it even laid eggs in a Godzilla's chest. I also like its noises and the fact that we do take the time to give these monsters personality. I'm glad we don't get the bad monster is bad and does bad things. It honestly seems like the Mutos are just 2 animals trying to get their groove on. Bet Ford and his sister can empathize. Alright, let's wrap up this part by talking about the Muto's big reveal. So as soon as Bryan Cranston gets done giving us the last bit of great acting in this film, the Muto starts to hatch. They talk about how the pulses are seconds apart. Seconds apart also referencing its birth, which I liked. Serizawa sees the threat this thing poses and tells his subordinate to kill it. They then deploy a giant electrified net to surround it and zap the cocoon. I wonder if that's how they planned on killing Mothra in the sequel. Though, unlike Mothra's release, this thing don't give a fuck about a little killin'. It even takes out Bryan Cranston! At least he got to see the thing that killed his wife, even though we don't get to see him react to it. I mean, this moment of vindication is what his whole story has been building to, and we don't even get a glimpse of it. He's just removed from the story because we're done with him. What a lackluster end to the most human character in this monster film. However, what bothers me more is Ford's reaction. Let me say it out loud because his character never seems to acknowledge it. The Muto is now responsible for the deaths of his mother and father, and basically robbed him of a normal childhood and a normal life. This monster is solely responsible for all the pain and hardship he's endured over the last 15 years. Some people tend to take that kind of thing personally. Not our boy Ford, though. Not only does he never express any outright anger or resentment towards the Mudo, he never even addresses it by name. Doesn't even say the name Godzilla, for that matter. What the fuck is up with this series in that regard? You know, there's a huge disconnect when the main character in your monster film never actually talks about the monsters. If he isn't invested in his own story, why should I be? That, and barely ever getting to see the fuckers doesn't help either. But let's save that discussion for the next part. Until then, it's about time for me to be hitting the old dusty trail. Whoop, found the fire door.